Guys, I'm recording this after I did this. I just want to insert this at the beginning. This video went super, super long. I didn't expect that, but there's so much here. So much here. So I hope you bear with me. I'm preaching in this. I'm enjoying it. I hope you enjoy it. Hey Renegades, welcome back to A-Aron Reacts, and I am super excited for Sick Boy. From the get-go, many of you have suggested this one, but some of you said wait and so forth. So regardless, we're getting to it now. And so let's dive right in. I have lyrics up if I need them. I could not be more excited. Ren never disappoints, so here we go.
Hi Ren, thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for seeing me.
Looking at your file here, it seems there's a very apparent interplay with your emotional state and your...
Whew. What an opening. My goodness. I think that, you know, in general, where we've kind of taken some of the lyrics separately and some of the music separately, we may need to do that here. But right out of the gate, it's really just intense is the word that comes to mind. Like, it's almost like he's just having this frustration, this almost hyperventilation, this, you know, just intense passion. And rhythmically, you hear a drum beat. It's almost like the, you know, like the bongos, you know, playing in the background, which is kind of like a Latin beat, or maybe like the high-pitched, like sometimes you could tune congas to, like the smaller one, I think it's the quinto, if I'm not mistaken, can have that same sound. But it's rhythmic, but it's an intense rhythm, especially combined with his, right? And, you know, and then it calms down when she comes in and she says, "Hi, Ren." And, you know, having reacted to the very first Ren video I did was "Hi, Ren," and she's using that exact same phrase, "Hi, Ren." So maybe with that video, again, I often don't go back and look at the timeline between these two. I probably should, and that's maybe an area I can improve on. So I don't know when this came out versus that, but I'm sure they're tied to each other in terms of that theme. And maybe in his life, he actually had some kind of, you know, therapist or otherwise that used that phrase and especially potentially repeatedly. So maybe it actually means something to him. And it's interesting that he, you know, he has the what I'm guessing is a therapist open with this. And the other thing too is he's almost hyperventilating, but then she asks how he is, and you could see him kind of like having this pulsating thought process. And, you know, he kind of, you know, calms down saying, "Oh, I'm okay," and so forth. So he's like almost performing for her, which we know is not really his inner demons.
Hi Ren.
Wow, just... And then right as she's talking, his face changes because he's like, again, he's putting on this facade. Because I'm guessing he doesn't want to seem as messed up, as agonized, as dealing with this as much in front of that person. So he's kind of shielding it.
Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for seeing me.
Looking at your
And he's just... Yeah, it's...
file here, it seems there's a very apparent interplay with your emotional state and your physical body. Have you ever heard of the trauma response?
I don't think so.
Basically, our bodies can get stuck in a negative feedback loop. Our subconscious can repeat patterns from the past, which can have a pretty drastic downstream effect on our biology. Essentially, your mind is making you sick.
Whew! That is powerful. Okay, I think I'm gonna need to dissect the lyrics, as always, separately. Well, not as always, but I think that it's always intense, and I feel like with Ren, that's probably the best thing to do. But in general, I wanted to pause here and comment that she's just like the moment she started talking, I noticed this, but as she goes on, she's just like robotic to him, right? He's just another number to her. And he said, "I think so," and you know, it's clear that, you know, he's not happy with what's being heard. And, you know, he probably can't even think straight because, you know, at this point, that music is symbolizing what's kind of the feeling going on in his head, right? And he sets that up at the beginning with the, and then the beat continues, like the drums, like I said. So it's almost like that is now the metaphor. The rhythm, the music is now the metaphor for that sentiment in his brain, but he has this facade in front of her.
Essentially, your mind is making music.
Okay, so I think that I was trying to understand what they're saying, but I don't think I could, and I'm not going to rewind it, a couple times or whatever it may take, because it may well be in another language. It may not even mean anything. But I think the idea is that there's voices in the head. There's so much going on. It's like his mind is racing like, oh my gosh, seriously, you're trying to tell me that, there's nothing actually going on here and that my mind is making it up, that like there's actually like, and knowing that he was misdiagnosed for so long, this is like kind of the beginning of that, right? So can only imagine the agony and pain he's going through physically tied to the emotional state. And this is so indicative, this imagery here, showing him kind of sitting in the corner by himself. He's no longer at the table. He's on an island by himself. At the moment being misdiagnosed, and these voices are going in his head, and it's racing. He can't think, as he said.
Essentially, your mind is making music.
Big boy.
Sick boy, bitten by a tick boy, looking for that fix boy, anabolic steroids, stem cell, poster boy, pass out, white noise, quick fix, snake oil, I'm about to break boy. Oh, what a shame, he's in pain, have another go, take another pill, here, take a couple more, let's see how you're doing in another week or so, you'll be feeling worse when the side effects will show, derealization, medical patient, losing patience with the process, walking hand in hand with Satan, complications with the medication, inflammation, dehydration, inhalation, aggravation, building up a toleration, drown, soccer, drown, soccer, drown, soccer, drown, I've been feeling like I'm drowning with my feet upon the ground, I've been screaming, I've been shouting, but I never make a sound, I've been looking for a way out, but I always seem to drown.
Is this all making sense, Ren?
Oh my goodness! So, musically, it's adding layers, which is the complexity of the turmoil, the discussion, the trauma, the terror, the angst, the frustration, the depression, all of the things going on, the pain going on in his body and his mind. This music is kind of adding those layers to it, but it's doing it in kind of a rhythmic, almost cyclical sense. So it's almost like, here we go, here we are, right? Like it's kind of creating this structure around the chaos that I think that structure is the piece that allows them to put up this facade and kind of, have this conversation with her as he's just going through this, right? And it's almost like, I'm going to try not to get emotional here, but it's the best example I have. Especially now that you've learned from me, those that have been following me a little bit, that, it's been a few years, but, I still have obviously daily feelings for my brother because I was close with him. And my older brother, this is my younger brother, my older brother, I was literally I was driving and, he called me out of the blue and said, hey, what are you up to? And I said, driving home or whatever. And he said, well, I've got some not so good news. And I said, okay. And he said, you might want to pull over for this. And I said, okay, sure, hold on. He said, you know what? I'm just going to tell you, you can take it. Bad move. Because when he told me that my brother had died, this just feeling went over to me. Like, it was like I had transformed into another dimension, right? And I think this musically and his intensity and the imagery of him alone and looking in the mirror and just all of this racing is kind of that same scenario here, where he's being diagnosed by someone who's reading a script, who is like, when he was talking, she was literally not even looking at him. She's like looking at her thing, just like completely motionless. Like he's just nobody. Like no heart whatsoever. And so he's just going through all of these feelings. And like the example I used is, you know, I feel like maybe he's like for me, that experience and others like it, where I get the same feeling, although it's obviously different feeling, but I get the same feeling like if I get pulled over by a police officer or something, or some major event happens, all of a sudden, like, I don't know, your mind and body kind of click into this alternative universe almost, right? It's almost euphoric, right? And I'm envisioning that that's what's happening here, but there's so much at play, and he's been battling with this. And, you know, finally he's here to learn what's going on. And basically she's telling him no. Now, lyrically, this just got super intense. And again, I think I'm going to need to break that down separately. And I think we'll get more to the meaning of it, as we do. Okay. So yeah, I'm just going to hold off on the lyrics, but in general, you know, he's kind of implying that, you know, this concept of, yeah, you're sick. Just looking for a fix. Here's a pill, right? And then he talks about stem cell and so forth. I'm gonna hold on to it, but just take another pill. And she passes it emotionless to him, almost saying the words. She's mouthing what he's saying as it occurs, and kind of passes it over like there's a quick fix for everything. And my gosh, the societal impacts of that. It's just ridiculous. I think I'm going to hold on going into that deeper, because I think we need to unpeel those layers a little bit more as we talk more about the lyrics.
I've been feeling like I'm drowning with my feet upon the ground. I've been screaming, I've been shouting, but I never make a sound. I've been looking for a way out, but I always seem to drown.
Is this all making sense, Ren?
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
Again, he switches back. Yeah, I think so. But clearly there's hesitation. Right? Like, it's almost like you almost are like, yeah, I understand, because you're checked out. He's checked out. Like, it's just like a, yes, okay, sure. Right? Like when someone finds out they have a terminal illness or someone passed away or something, I imagine the same kind of experience for him in this moment. Right? And it's just like, sure, whatever. And then, to boot, they add pig face to the mix. Right? Which, you know, we know is symbolic of like greed and the system. And I think it goes back to, you know, the fact that, you know, she's wearing the clipboard, or has the clipboard here with the gloves on. It's kind of almost symbolic of our system and the medical system specifically. I think there's greater societal implications, but, you know, medically here specifically, right? You're a number. It's a profit system. Right? You ever go to a doctor's office and sit there and wait for 72 hours? I'm exaggerating, of course, but it feels like it. Why is that? They double, triple book. Because they can't have an empty slot. They can't have any kind of unbillable time. Because then they're not maximizing their profit. So it's to your deficit that you sit there in a lobby sick with other people just sucking up whatever's there from everybody, right? And then they just treat you like a number as you go through. And that greed, I think, is what he's implying here with the pig boy.
Always seem to drown.
Is this all making sense, Ren?
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
And she smiles as she says that.
The exact experiences from the past that are keeping you stuck. What can you tell me about your childhood?
I can't really think.
It's okay if nothing comes up right away.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I can't really think, like, oh, it's okay. I'm sorry, but that is heartless. Show some fucking compassion. Like, what?
What can you tell me about your childhood?
I can't really think.
It's okay if nothing comes up right away. What I'd like you to do is take some deep breaths with me. In and out. In and out. Good.
The the beat going with it, it almost changes it up, right? It's almost like it switches from like a 4 beat to like a 2, which is, you know, one and of the same. You get in, but the feeling of it. 1, 2, 1, 2. The other thing here is he's playing along. Even though he's like, you know, sick boy, here's another pill boy, bitten by a tick boy, right? You're misdiagnosing me because he's telling the story. He knows he's been bitten by a tick, even though you're telling me this in this moment. He's still playing along. He wants to be healthy. Even though he doesn't trust it, he's still playing along because what else can he do? So when she says, take a deep breath, he does. He listens to her. He's still going to follow what they're telling him. And it's just so indicative of his life. It's like, okay, I'll do what you tell me, but come on. Now, of course, in that moment, he didn't know that he was being misdiagnosed, so it makes sense that he would play along, but still, it's all, oh, Jesus.
What you to do is take some deep breaths with me. In and out. In and out. Good.
So yeah, I mean, the music is still in 4. Technically, it's kind of got, it all along has kind of had an 8 feeling. Although this switches more to a 4 feeling, so maybe that's why it feels more like 2. But because the emphasis is so strong in that 1, it almost feels like it's an extended 2. So it just emphasizes that in, out, in.
In and out. Good. Now tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
I feel like it's not me, it's the world that's sick. We're given everything we need and we commoditize it. We consume, we destroy like we're parasitic.
Wow, okay. I'm sorry, I know it just paused, but like, this look on his face. He is right in her eyes, like, yo. And it's almost like he's angry. Like, what did he say? Sorry, I gotta scroll. I feel like it's not me, it's the world that's sick. Right? We're given everything we need and we commoditize it. Oh my gosh. Just the eye stare there, it's just, and he stands up, he's like, yo, you want to know what I'm thinking? Dang. Look at that.
Now tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
I feel like it's not me, it's the world that's sick. We're given everything we need and we commoditize it. We consume, we destroy like we're parasitic. Science tells us that it's suicide and still we commit. I'm not sick, we are sick. We are standing on a cliff in the name of progress. We jump off the precipice. I'm not sick, I'm the virus, you're the virus, hypocrite. How can you sit there with that smile and tell me that I'm sick? Sick boy, looking for a fix, boy. Push it down in public, quick pose for the pick, boy. Record label meetings that commodify your gift, boy. Why you so upset? Don't you wanna be a rich boy? Fuck no, industry is cutthroat. I've been doing bits by myself, walking on a tightrope, rapping with a slit throat. The way that we persist is like the ending of a bad joke. As the people evolve, we're complacent to it.
Okay. I don't want to miss this. First of all, his eyes right here. Like, when I stopped it, I realized it right at that. We'll go back. But he did the same type of thing musically here, where he actually is almost singing, even though he's kind of been rapping and talking throughout, that he had done in A-Aron, where all the way throughout, he just is doing that. And then at the end, he kind of sings. So we get that same kind of almost singing here. And also, the high pitched. It's almost like he's shouting to the world, but he's doing it rhythmically.
Swimming backstroke, walking on a tightrope, rapping with a slit throat. The way that we persist is like the ending of a bad joke. As the people.
So we will have to unpack that line. The way that we persist is like the ending of a bad joke. And remember, I'm going to try to remember. Let me write that down before I forget. Just the way he sings it, right? He's emphasizing it. So we'll unpack that separately.
The way that we persist is like the ending of a bad joke. As the people
the eyes.
We're complacent to assailants and we do what we're told.
Okay, so I didn't get the eyes until I see the pig boy moving around him, observing him, watching his every move. He's like he's being watched, right? So he's kind of like
rapping with a slit throat. The way that we persist is like the ending of a bad joke. As the people evolve, we're complacent to assailants and we do what we're told. Counterintelligence, a sight to behold. Break the earth of all resources and we bleed it for gold. And we bleed it for wealth, we bleed it for fame. But when you bleed it, can you tell me what the fuck will remain? And I'm bleeding myself, I bleed in my brain. While I'm bleeding, I'm the reason, cause I'm doing the same.
Gosh. Ren, you are a freaking superstar, dude. Seriously. You're just a flat out genius. I mean, seriously. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Alright, I'm gonna move these lyrics down some, so that I'm kind of looking at you as I'm going through them. Because I really want to unpack the lyrics. But before I do, actually, let me talk a little bit more. I actually did talk more about the music throughout than I thought. I don't think there's really much to analyze, in terms of like the chord progression and things like that, and just the general structure, right? It's very cyclical in nature. You've got a couple of different patterns that I feel like, after hearing it all, that kind of my original assessment, I still stand by that, whether it's true or not is a completely different story, but it's my interpretation, that he's got kind of these different patterns that are representing different thoughts and sentiments and the complexity and the layers of it, and they're emphasized more in some points versus the other to show more frustration, show more the hyperventilation and anger we talked about. In other cases, the voices in the head and being the confusion and so forth. So you hear some of that playing in and out, but there's not a whole lot more to it in my mind than that. It's just creating some, almost like the cyclical nature of this is the piece that keeps him composed, right? It's the piece that allows him to still maintain some level of self amidst the madness, amidst the chaos. That enables him to put up this facade, that allows him to have a decent conversation with, I'm guessing, a therapist here, when all inside he is just all over the place, like, what the heck is going on with me? I just don't understand, right? So I think we'll leave it at that, and then, let's talk about some of the other elements before we get into the lyrics, because I think the lyrics are going to bring us home, and there's a lot to comment on the lyrics, so don't skip that. But ultimately, again, we see him, in this room of isolation, and it's almost like a jail cell, right? Like the paint falling off, decrepit room and setup. He's in a cell by himself. He's got the white on, almost like he's a patient, but again, with chalk outlines, we almost feel like we've got like him not represented by himself. So I feel like there's some overlying themes of that. And again, as we had seen also in chalk outlines, you've got that brick wall, so I'm guessing maybe it's actually the same facility, where on one side it's almost like it's inescapable, and in chalk outlines I talked about the other side was there were doors and there was this world for escape. So, that dichotomy of, it's inescapable versus the way forward, the path forward is through the pills I'm passing to and so forth. We see that symbolism with the cinematography and so forth. And of course, the brilliant use of cinematography where it pans from the therapist over to him. And, as he stands up, there's a delay before it shifts the camera up to him. And all of these perspectives that are there and so forth just gives you this intensity. They zoom in when he's looking directly at her and she's right at the camera. Well, almost like he comes to it, but either way, that cinematography just throughout is brilliant. When you got the pig face walking around him and the eyes there, and just, that's his performance, but it zooms out to be able to see the whole room and to show it all, and just everything's just brilliant. And then sick boy words and everything. So yeah, I keep using brilliant, but it really is. Okay, so let's kind of pick this apart a little bit. So, hi Ren, thank you for coming in. Thanks for seeing me. Look at your file here. So, yeah, we already talked about this. Robotic, emotionless. I don't think we need to, play on that more. It seems there's a very apparent interplay with your emotional state and your physical body. Have you ever heard of the trauma response? I don't think so. Well, basically, and again, we talked about how robotic all of this is read. Basically, our bodies can get stuck in a negative feedback loop. Our subconscious can repeat patterns from the past, which can have a pretty drastic effect in our biology. Essentially, your mind is making you sick. I remember that she changed their voice as she said that, right? Very indicative of kind of the Eden. And in A-Aron, where he switches to more of that deep devilish voice, so it's almost like he's, I wanted to say personified, but like devil-sizing her voice. Like he's transforming that character into it. And also, it's the perfect transition because he starts, talking then afterwards. Rapping might be a better term, but it's that transition where he's kind of getting that out-of-body experience I talked about, kind of making you sick. And, that interplay with your emotional state and your physical body, right? So how trauma can manifest physically, which is real, right? Your mind can make things occur that just aren't real, right? Like, Psycho-Cybernetics, is a book that is just a fantastic book, by the way, but it's written by a former plastic surgeon. And he talks about these stories of people that ultimately he would perform plastic surgery on, an arm or a face or something like that. The one I mentioned the arm because he talked about someone with missing a limb, and it almost feels like they still have that limb on them, or someone had destroyed their face, and he'll perform plastic surgery on it, and they look in the mirror and they still feel their self, right? The mind is playing tricks on them, and the mind can make it worse, and the mind can actually put someone into a physical illness or ailment, right? And so it's the same concept that they're talking about here, that essentially is his diagnosis, but we know that isn't at least entirely true. I'm still not sure I understand how much physical challenges he's actually had versus what has been caused as a result of this versus what is just the Lyme disease. But nevertheless, it's clearly an overall misdiagnosis, right? And so he's got that disconnect. And they talk about a negative feedback loop here, right? Our bodies can get stuck in a negative feedback loop, where it's almost like he's also, there's a metaphor there where he feels trapped in that negative feedback loop, where his unresolved trauma, right, and frustration is kind of exacerbated by this physical pain. And it's just this loop over and over again. And yeah, I think that's all I want to comment for there. So then we get into sick boy, bitten by a tick boy, looking for that fix boy, anabolic steroids. So, this concept of sickness and illness and societal expectations placed on those who are, chronically ill, it's there's this judgment almost like it, right? Like, I feel like mental illness has been stigmatized, and, fortunately, I feel like we're headed in the right direction, which, by the way, I think it was on my last video I posted. Maybe I'll post a link to it here. It was the second time I did that, but YouTube gave me the option to add a fundraiser to the video. So I did that, and I added one for mental illness, and I donated $50 myself, and I hope that we can contribute. So please go ahead and do that. I'll put a link to that as opposed to doing another fundraiser, right? Which I'd done that twice, kind of the same one. So, but anyway, I feel like we're headed in the right direction in terms of awareness. It's been stigmatized, but at the same note, I feel like mental awareness is on the rise, but the problem still exists and it isn't fixed. And so it's almost like here, he's kind of mocking it, like, yeah, you're saying I'm sick and so forth, sick boy. And I know that that's a spelling in the UK that I didn't realize before this, but I still love the BOI. It's still really cool to me. It's still relatively new. But it's, he's grasping with physical illness as well as the mental state, and it's kind of this societal judgment on it, right? And then he kind of says, looking for that fix boy, anabolic steroids, Oh, that's right. I remember him emphasizing that. Oh, so it's almost like he's like the word terror is in that. Interesting. That's neat. I like that. So I'm guessing steroids is something that, he had taken that, would help, his condition. Apologies, but I don't know enough medically to understand the impact or whatever. So I'm guessing he's saying that. But, steroids are, kind of build up your muscle. No, at least in terms of when abused, right? I know that steroids aren't just used for that purpose. They can quickly get rid of something before jumping into antibiotics. It's typically, kill off something infectious or have a rapid onset of beginning to fight it off type of thing is how I've typically understood steroids used medically, right? Stem cell poster boy. So I believe one of you told me in the comments that, he got stem cells, or I read it somewhere. I didn't do a ton of research on him. I did a little, but either way, I think that he was given stem cells, and he's saying poster boy. And so clearly it was experimental in nature, and they probably did some kind of article on him or something to that effect and used it for their gain. So he is a poster boy, or at least they maybe wanted to, or something to that effect. So I'm guessing that's what that means. Pass out white noise, right? So yeah, I think that's just a play on everything else. Just pass out white noise. There's just always this constant noise happening in struggle. But quick fix, snake oil. I'm about to break, boy. My gosh, that snake oil. You're putting up a facade, medical institution and system and society and therapist that's talking to me. All you need to do is give me a quick fix. You're trying to sell me on this, which I've talked about this before. Our society is that way, where they don't want to actually spend the time with you. It's all commoditized. It's all monetized. It's all, about profit. I talked to you about the waiting room and so forth. And they want to quickly diagnose you and get out. And in most cases, it's a simple script, right? And so you're trying to sell me this. You got this snake oil. It's a quick fix. And I'm about to break. But you don't care. Like, I'm about to break. Oh, what a shame. Again, what a shame we see as a recurring theme in so much of his stuff, right? And I first learned about this in the tale of Jenny, and Violet and Screech. I think I said those in reverse order, but it doesn't matter. And, how the police had, commented on, these deaths. Oh, what a shame. And he pokes fun of that. Like, society just kind of brushes things off, and we forget things so quickly. Right? What a shame, and that's it. But we don't actually mean it, right? So, oh, what a shame, he's in pain. Have another go, right? Take another pill. Here, take a couple more. Right? Let's see how you're doing in a week or so. Right? Like, just get out of my hair. Like, here's what you need. Take a pill. Just go away. You'll be fine. And imagine him in that moment. Just going through so much. And you're trying to tell me that we'll see how you feel in a week? Will it help me right away? Will there be side effects? And then he talks about side effects. You'll be feeling worse when the side effects will show. Oh my goodness. Derealization, medical patient. So it's almost like you're like burning off the scars, or burning off the, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm blanking, but ultimately, okay, let's use this, right? Like, so there's concepts of people burning off the fingertips to get rid of fingerprints, right? Criminals and so forth. But you also desensitize that, right? So the nerves, for some reason I couldn't think of the word nerves, right? So it's almost like you're burning off and singeing those nerves so they can't feel. And I feel like that's almost what he's touching on here, is that derealization, right? Like, stop trying to make sense of this. Just derealize what's going on. Losing patience with the process, walking hand in hand with Satan. Oh my goodness. And we know that he was misdiagnosed for years. Complications with the medications, inflammation, dehydration, inhalation, aggravation, building up a toleration. And then I think this is when he's looking at the mirror. Drown, sucker, drown, sucker, drown, sucker, drown. I've been feeling like I'm drowning with my feet upon the ground. So I've got some stabilization here. My feet are on the ground, but I still feel like I'm drowning. Right? I've been screaming, I've been shouting, but I never make a sound. Why can't you hear me? Why can't you understand? This is not working. You're not understanding me. I've been looking for a way out, but I always seem to drown. I think I'm going to have to go back and with those lyrics in hand, listen to that part, because again, I think he's looking at the mirror at that point. Okay, while I was going back and looking, I found that part, the antibiotic steroids. So I want to listen to that again with you to kind of call that out.
That fix boy, anabolic steroids, stem cell, poster boy, pass out.
Steroids. Wow, that's clever.
Medication, inflammation, dehydration, inhalation, aggravation, building up a toleration. Drown, sucker, drown, sucker, drown, sucker, drown. I've been feeling like I'm drowning with my feet upon the ground. I've been screaming, I've been shouting, but I never make a sound. I've been looking for a way out, but I always seem to drown.
Is this all making...
Whew. So, not just the lyrics, but the way he's delivering it and the music. So it builds, and then it kind of settles down and builds, and it's kind of this cyclical tension and release. And then, as he says, I feel like I'm drowning, he kind of settles back into his seat, putting back up that facade again, right? And just, okay, I've got to calm down, and I'm drowning, but, you're here, I'm here, and we're going to follow through on that, right? Jeez, oh, Pete's. Okay, so then, is this all making sense, Ren? Oh, yeah, I think so. Good, what I propose that she just continues, right? Like, he's like, yeah, I think so. Who clearly is not a definitive, right? I've never obviously been in the medical profession or psychology, but, I've dealt with people as a manager, as a leader, and, I've learned that it's not what people say always, it's how they say it. Right? And here, he's clearly, there's a disconnect between what he's saying and how he's feeling. And she just continues as if, whatever. Okay, good. This is the script I need to follow. Let's continue. What I propose we do is we try to pinpoint the exact experiences from the past that are keeping you stuck. So in other words, there's some trauma that is believed to be holding you up. So let's try to pinpoint that. Let's get to actually diagnose what the problem is. Or actually, we've already diagnosed it, but let's try to get towards that path of fixing it. And, this quick fix, medicine, and so forth, it's actually, even though it's robotic, it's actually somewhat of a relief at this point for me, that at least she's trying to take it one step further. And at least if they believe, miscorrectly or inaccurately, but at least if they believe that, it is some kind of trauma, that let's at least get to the bottom of that and work with me. So, at least that's something, despite the way it's being delivered and the complete and total lack of compassion and so forth, right? And the greed and the pig boy that becomes her and so forth. Okay. I can't really think. It's okay if nothing comes up right away. What I'd like you to do is take some deep breaths with me, in and out, in and out. Good. Now tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Like this part, oh my God. So first of all, I already talked about the fact that he played along, but it's almost like when she said, tell me the first thing that comes to mind, and I remember that he instantly starts coming in, and he said, I feel like it's not me. All right, here Bren's about to preach, and I'm about to preach. So let's put on that seatbelt, because now it starts to get real. Because now he starts to do what Ren typically does, and loops it back into some kind of societal implications or something going on or some life lesson that ties everything to, I've been through this, but this is what you need to learn from it. Right? So I feel like it's not me, it's the world that's sick. So it's almost like his suffering becomes a lens. Right? And so he, of course, always views well, not always, but, he often points at themes that societal behaviors are inherently destructive, right? We're giving everything we need and we commoditize it. We consume, we destroy, we're parasitic, right? So it's almost just like his illness, it's caught in this destructive cycle, right? Prioritizing short-term gain over long-term health, right? And so the ecosystem, the environment, But then he says, where was it? Okay, yeah, so it's much further down. But he says, rape the earth of all resources, and we bleed it for gold. And we bleed it for wealth, we bleed it for fame. So, right, even here, when he's talking about, we're given everything we need and we commoditize it. We consume and destroy it like we're parasitic, right? And so, I thought about this before, but I don't know that I said it. But, there's a movie, Blood Diamond, and, this concept of mining for diamonds, actually mining the earth, but it's done in such a way with such, such just complete and utter disrespect and lack of any humanity to how people are treated. Slaves essentially, to actually mine for those diamonds, and the concept of blood is given for it. I feel like he's talking a lot about that here and mining for the gold and so forth. And, we don't treat what we're given, right? So there's almost a direct, literal, like with the earth, we're destroying it. And this is so true. Like, wake up. We are at a turning point in our earth's history with global warming where shit is real. If you're not awake to this, then what the hell are you doing? If I can be any kind of a beacon for Ren's messaging and transparency, I want to make you aware that we're already seeing things that, like 100-degree temperatures off the coast of Florida in the water. That's like bath water, guys. We're seeing hurricanes and big storms and all this stuff. Mother Earth is warning us. And scientists are telling us that we're right there. We're on the precipice of this. Right? And when we've got leaders that turn their back, say it's a fucking hoax, that makes me mad because it's my kids and their kids that are going to have to experience that, even though we might even see some of it in my lifetime because it's happening so fast. And so when we talk about consuming earth and resources and so forth, right, we're doing exactly that. We don't care about it. We're destroying Earth's ozone. We're destroying what we've been given. We don't appreciate it. Science tells us that it's like suicide and we still commit. Like committing suicide, we still go for it. We still destroy. We don't care. And we commit, almost like a double play there of being committed in an institution, I imagine. I'm sure that's not an accident. I'm not sick. We are sick. We are standing on a cliff. We heard that we're standing on a cliff with, was it Eden? I think it was Eden. In any case, we've seen that kind of metaphor as well already. I have at least. But we also had this concept of, in the gallows, standing on my tiptoes, right, in chalk outlines with Chinchilla and Ren, right? And so standing on a cliff, standing at the edge of that precipice, in the name of progress, we jump off the precipice. I think that might even be the same line, actually. I think it's Eden, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was one of the money games. Sorry, guys. They're all blending. I'm not sick. I'm the virus. You're the virus. Hypocrite. Dude. Right? So it's like, he's first of all, self-realization. Right? Like he's got this disillusionment with, humanity's choices, but he juxtaposes his own suffering. Like with this overall hypocrisy in societal values and behaviors and so forth. How can you sit there with that smile on your face and tell me that I'm sick? Sick boy looking for a fix boy. So it's almost like he's jumping into this, stigmatized term sick. Right? Like, I've got a problem and I need to be fixed. Looking for a fix boy. And you're going to sit there with a smile and go through this as if I'm just another patient? Do you have any freaking idea? And that's why he stands up and he just gets in her face like, yo! Push it down in public. Quick pose for the pick boy. Wow. Record label meetings that commoditize your gift boy. So in other words, quick, get your pill, put up that facade, look good. You got to pose for the picture. And he talked about this in High Ren and several other points. He's talking about this with Money Game and the greed of record labels and so forth that commodify your gift, boy. Why are you so upset? Don't you want to be a rich boy? right? And again, that goes back to that high run discussion with the record labels and so forth. It's almost like the industry's capitalizing on his pain, like packaging it as entertainment. But then, he's having this inner dialogue with himself where it's like, don't you want that? And then he says, fuck no, industry is cutthroat. Like, I don't want to be a part of that. I'll do it on my own. I've been doing bits by myself, swimming backstroke. Whoo. Right? So we know he's been at it alone, independent, and so forth, and done very well. So he's kind of taken past and present time and warping them, right, into this interchange and playing in it. And he's aware of some of what's happened and so forth. And swimming backstroke, right? Like backstroke is a stroke where you're literally like this. And I was a swimmer, so I can talk more specifically about it. Not a backstroker, but I did swim, IM a couple times and stuff. So I did all of them. Individual medley, although it's mostly a butterfly. But anyway, you don't see what's coming in front of you. So it's almost like he's moving forward, but is he really having progress? And he's also blind. He can't see ahead, right? So it's almost like a reflection on this uncertainty and vulnerability that, almost comes with like this self-reliance. Like he can't rely on the system or anything. So he's just got to go and he's just got to trust. And furthermore, and this is where my swimming does come into play, guys, because you might not have thought of this. But when you're in a competition in swimming, most of the time you're underwater or there's water in the ears and so forth. And so unlike a lot of sports where there's fans around, you can hear them, you can see them, right? When you're swimming, you don't see and hear much. But there's a big exception to that because one of them is backstroke. Because the whole time you're backstroking, you're looking up at the ceiling, a lot of people are, but especially when you turn and stuff, there's always people at the edge cheering for you and so forth. So what he's saying with backstroke, he's moving away from the people that are his cheerleading squad or whatever. He's moving away from them. So the only thing he sees is what's behind him and can't see what's in front of him. That is a super powerful metaphor. Right? So I'm going blind into the future and I have to sit there and analyze and focus on the past. And he knows now that in order to do that, he needs to almost figure out, because I read somewhere that he had a lot of like relentless pursuit for determining what's really wrong with him. Right? And so it's almost like he needs to be his own Sherlock Holmes and determine it. So he has to look at the past while he's trying to march towards the future. Whew. Walking on a tightrope, right? Rapping with a slit throat. So we've already talked a little bit about walking on a tightrope. I feel like it's the same concept of, and I mentioned, the chalk outlines reference. But it's like this constant pressure he feels both in life and career, like creating honest, perspective, but not to be so bogged down by greed and corruption and so forth at the risk of rejection. And then there's exploitation and misunderstanding. And how can I be true to myself? And so he's rapping with the slit throat. It's like he can't be his full self if he wants to grow and succeed because society doesn't reward that. Right? And the other thing is it's almost suggesting the physical toll that this is taking on him. Right? And I learned right around the time I did 1 million subscribers video that, I'm just looking at the timer and holy cow, I didn't realize this was going to be so long, but I hope you're still with me and enjoying it. When he actually fell ill again. He got sick because it was like he overdid it. You guys shared that with me. And so we're kind of connecting that to the physical. The way that we persist is like the ending of a bad joke, right? So it's like humanity's resilience is bleak, right? Like, it's like this twisted bad joke that falls short. It's futile. It's misguided. And so it's almost like it's his view of society's paths, that we tend to go down these destructive paths that end nowhere, that fall short and so forth, right? As the people evolved, we're complacent to assailants as we do what we're told. So society continues to evolve. Technology, culture, knowledge, right? But it still remains passive to threats or harmful influences, right? Complacent to assailants. I mean, again, I think this is the time where I'm going to really lay it on you. Wake up with what we're doing to our environment and what this is going to do to Earth. This is the most existential threat to humanity that we've faced ever, perhaps, is what's actually happening with global warming. We're reaching a turning point where we can't turn back. So, yeah, if I'm going to be a beacon for messaging and so forth, I hope that you can jump on the bandwagon and raise awareness, because it's not too late. It's not too late. It's not too late. It's not too late. It's almost too late. It's almost too late. Counterintelligence, a sight to behold. So this frames societal behaviors as counterintelligence, suggesting that even as we advance intellectually, it almost contradicts itself, right? Contradicts true wisdom. Again, we go to those short-term gains, fame, etc., which is counterproductive. It's counterintelligent. Rape the earth of all its resources, we bleed it for gold. We talked a lot about it, but what we didn't talk about is when you bleed it, can you tell me what the fuck actually, we did talk about that. Okay. And I'm bleeding myself, I'm bleeding my brain. So we're almost done. Thank you for bearing with me if you made it this far. Wow. Just, it's like it's personal. He's tying this together, like personal journey, larger societal sickness. We talked about that. This long-term battle of misdiagnosis and the exhausting cycle of quick fix and just intense suffering and so forth. It's taken a toll on him, both physically, mentally. He's bleeding his brain, right? And then he says, you know, it's almost like despite this exploitative tendencies of society, he's been engaged in a similar cycle, right? Like he's been giving himself, his health, his creativity, his mental peace over to systems that don't necessarily support him. And then finally, while I'm bleeding, I'm the reason because I'm doing the same. So it's this complex self-awareness, right? And even today, we know that, you know, he sends these themes, but, you know, he does want his message to get out there, and he does want more views. He wants to exploit the system, but he wants to do it for the right way. And I think that's the key here. Many of you have talked about it. It's not just the money, it's the greed, right? And I think that's important. Guys, this went super long. I had no idea. I hope you're not mad at me for that. I know most of you like this, but those that, you know, don't, I hope you can understand. I'm really trying to understand, right? Like, it's my true reaction, but I'm doing a full analysis here too. So I hope you can understand. I appreciate you. I think we'll leave it at that. Guys, I want to remind you, I was going to show the video, but this is so long, I'm not going to do it. I have a membership site, A-Aron.com/Ren, where you get videos early. I'm building it out right now. I think there's 2 or 3, and we're continuing to build that out. And probably by this time, a week from now that I do this, probably 2 weeks from when you see it, there will probably be about 6 or 7 in there for the higher level membership, and there's kind of always going to be 2 for the lower level membership. But either way, subscribe if you haven't. I appreciate you. Sorry this went so long, but hopefully it was good for you. Thank you much, and we'll see you in the next one.